Well, divisions of opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict here in Europe are basically as old as the conflict itself, and this latest explosion of violence has really highlighted those divisions. We really haven't had a united EU response here. Now, today, the EU's 27 foreign ministers are meeting to try, once again, to agree some kind of united position here. It's the number one issue on their agenda, and the big question is whether they can agree to a humanitarian ceasefire. So we have several EU countries calling for that, for instance, Spain, France, Ireland, but we also have countries that are reticent to make that call, notably Germany, who fears that making such a call would put some kind of constraints on Israel in its response to the attack that they suffered at the hands of Hamas. So this is going to be a contentious subject today. We did have the European Commissioner in charge of humanitarian aid, Commissioner Lenarčič. He came in to the summit this morning calling for such a ceasefire. We've had several foreign ministers coming in calling for a ceasefire, but this has divided opinion. It's divided opinion. Really, this is one of those issues where you can tell where every official is from. Their political standpoints, which political party they're in, almost is immaterial on this subject. The thing that tells you what they're going to say is what country they're coming from. And that's even been seen within the European Commission. We've had the commissioner from Hungary coming out with that, what turned out to be a false announcement about the EU suspending aid to Palestine, then the commissioner from Slovenia walking that back. And all of this has really mostly been evident in the very bad relations between the Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, and the Council President, that's the group of member state leaders, Charles Michel. They've been very publicly divided on this topic, and there's a European Council summit coming up. So this Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting today is happening ahead of the Summit of Prime Ministers and Presidents happening here in Brussels on Thursday and Friday. And so hopefully, they're really hoping that they can have a united front there, but it's looking unlikely based on what we've seen over the past 2 weeks.
Dave, you touched on this point, and that's, of course, the way the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has been ruffling feathers for some over how she's handled this crisis from the get-go.
Yeah, there are many people very angry with President von der Leyen, basically for two reasons. One, they don't like what she's saying, so they don't like that she has been very strident in her support of Israel. She, especially in the early days, did not talk about any kind of restraint, did not talk about following international law. Now, President von der Leyen is from Germany, and Germany doesn't tend to have much sympathy for Palestinians in the government's stances. And those countries that tend to be more sympathetic toward the Palestinian cause, notably Ireland, France, Spain, those countries I mentioned, they have not been happy that von der Leyen has been doing this. And that's for another reason, too, which is that technically the European Commission, the body she heads, isn't supposed to be in charge of foreign policy. That may be in the treaties, but actually the reality is President von der Leyen has been very out front on foreign policy since the start of her term. Nobody complained when she did it with Ukraine, but now she's having less of a united position to represent. So the big question is whether she can pull back a bit in her unqualified support for Israel to better reflect the division of opinion within the EU. And the key question is whether this is going to impact her prospects for having a second term. She needs to be reappointed next year. She's running, she's all but officially running to have a second term as Commission President. The national leaders need to appoint her, and there's a lot of national leaders not happy with her right now. If she is interested in her political future here in Brussels, she's going to need to think about how to calm them down at that summit of EU prime ministers and presidents Thursday and Friday.